The crystal glasses clinked around the exclusive Napa Valley estate as Gabriel Grayson adjusted his custom Armani suit and suppressed a yawn. Another obligatory social event. Another night of mindless small talk with people who wanted something from him. At 35, Gabriel had built Grayson Investments from the ground up into a multi-billion-dollar empire, but success had brought isolation that no amount of wealth could fill. "Gabriel, there you are," called Marcus Ellison, his college roommate turned successful vineyard owner. "Stop hiding in the corner. This is supposed to be fun, remember?" Gabriel forced a smile. "Just taking in the view." The floor-to-ceiling windows showcased rolling vineyards bathed in the golden glow of sunset. It was objectively beautiful, but beauty had become background noise in Gabriel's life. "Well, take in this view instead. The sommelier I hired for tonight is about to begin the first tasting. She's a rising star in the wine world, brilliant palate, encyclopedic knowledge. Everyone's talking about her." Gabriel suppressed another yawn. Everyone was always talking about someone in these circles. "Lead the way." Marcus guided him through the crowd of Silicon Valley executives, celebrities, and old money families who had gathered for this exclusive wine dinner. They reached a long table where a woman stood arranging glasses with practiced precision. When she looked up, Gabriel felt an unexpected jolt. She wasn't conventionally beautiful in the way of the women who typically orbited his social circle. Her brown hair was pulled back in a simple knot, her face free of heavy makeup. But there was something in her eyes, a sharp intelligence, a quiet confidence that caught his attention. "Ladies and gentlemen," Marcus announced, "please welcome Amelia Prentiss, who will be guiding our tasting experience tonight." She smiled, and Gabriel noticed a small dimple in her right cheek. "Thank you all for coming. Tonight we'll be exploring vintages that tell a story of place and time." Her voice was clear and melodic, lacking the affected tone many adopted in these settings. Gabriel found himself moving closer as others took their seats. "Our first selection," Amelia continued, lifting a bottle, "is a 2014 Chateau Margaux. Notice the ruby color, the way the light catches it." She poured with graceful efficiency, her hands steady and sure. As the evening progressed, Gabriel remained transfixed. While others networked between courses, he found himself listening to Amelia's commentary with genuine interest. She spoke about wine with poetic precision, but without pretension. When she described a Barolo as defiant and unapologetic, like someone who knows exactly who they are, Gabriel felt an unexpected resonance. After the fifth course, when guests began to mingle more freely, Gabriel approached her as she organized bottles. "That was illuminating," he said, surprising himself with his sincerity. Amelia looked up, recognition flickering in her eyes. "Mr. Grayson, I'm glad you enjoyed it." "Gabriel, please." He extended his hand, feeling strangely formal. "Amelia." Her handshake was firm, her skin warm from handling glasses. "I've attended dozens of wine tastings, but I've never heard someone describe wine quite the way you do." She smiled, that small dimple appearing again. "Most people talk about wine like it's a status symbol or a science experiment. I prefer to think of each bottle as having a personality." "And what would my personality be in wine terms?" The question slipped out before he could censor it. Amelia studied him for a moment, her gaze unexpectedly direct. "Something aged and valuable that's been kept in the dark too long." She paused, then added with a hint of mischief, "Perhaps a first-growth Bordeaux that needs to breathe." Gabriel felt a genuine laugh escape him for the first time in months. "Ouch, direct hit, occupational hazard. I spend more time with wines than people. They don't mind honesty." A waiter appeared at her elbow. "Miss Prentiss, there's an issue with the dessert pairing." Amelia nodded. "Excuse me," she said to Gabriel. "Duty calls." As she walked away, Gabriel found himself watching her with interest that surprised him. She moved with purpose, without the self-conscious elegance of people accustomed to being observed. Later, as the evening wound down and guests began to leave, Gabriel found himself lingering. He spotted Amelia in a quiet corner making notes in a small leather journal. "Documenting tonight's successes?" he asked, approaching her again. She looked up. "And the failures?" "I learned early that you remember more from what goes wrong than what goes right. A philosophy we share." He hesitated, then added, "I'd be interested to hear more about your approach to wine, perhaps over dinner sometime." Amelia closed her journal, her expression thoughtful. "Mr. Grayson, Gabriel," he corrected gently. "Gabriel," she amended. "I appreciate the offer, but I make it a policy not to mix business with pleasure. Most of my clients are people like you, people like me." His eyebrow rose. "People who are used to getting what they want when they want it." She said it without judgment, simply stating a fact. Gabriel felt an unexpected respect for her directness. "Fair enough. What if I said it was purely professional interest? I'm hosting an event next month and need someone with expertise." Amelia considered this, then reached into her pocket and handed him a simple business card. "My contact information. If you're serious about the event, my assistant can check my availability." Their fingers brushed as he took the card, and Gabriel noticed her slight intake of breath. Perhaps he wasn't the only one feeling an unexpected connection. "Thank you for an exceptional evening, Amelia." He tucked the card into his jacket pocket. "I'll be in touch." As Gabriel drove back to San Francisco that night, the lights of the Bay Bridge glittering ahead, he found himself replaying their conversations. For the first time in years, he felt genuinely intrigued by someone. Not because of what she could offer his business or social standing, but because of who she seemed to be: direct, passionate, and refreshingly unconcerned with impressing him. He glanced at her card on the passenger seat. Amelia Prentiss, Advanced Sommelier. Below that, a simple motto: "Every bottle tells a story." Gabriel smiled to himself in the darkness of his car. He wanted to hear more of those stories, and perhaps, though he wouldn't admit it yet even to himself, he wanted to know hers. 3 days later, Amelia was conducting an inventory check at the wine storage facility where she kept her private collection when her phone rang. Her assistant's name flashed on the screen. "Hey, Lisa," Amelia answered, cradling the phone against her shoulder as she examined a bottle. "I've got Gabriel Grayson's people on the other line," Lisa said without preamble. "They want to book you for an event on the 15th. Amelia hesitated, remembering the intensity in Gabriel's blue eyes when he'd looked at her. "What kind of event?" "A corporate dinner at his penthouse." "Small gathering, very exclusive. They're offering double your usual rate." Amelia frowned. "They don't need to do that. My rates are my rates." "Well, that's what they're offering. Should I accept?" Amelia thought about her policy of maintaining professional distance. Yet something about Gabriel Grayson had caught her interest, perhaps the way his carefully constructed facade had slipped when she'd compared him to a bottled-up Bordeaux. There had been a flash of authentic amusement, a glimpse of someone more complex than the billionaire investor the world saw. "Yes," she decided. "But make it clear this is a professional engagement. I'll need details on the guest list, menu plans, and their expectations for the wine pairings." "Got it. I'll send over the contract today." After hanging up, Amelia continued her inventory, but her mind kept drifting to Gabriel Grayson. She'd recognized him immediately at Marcus's dinner. Who wouldn't? His face graced financial magazines and business journals regularly. the self-made billionaire who had transformed investment strategies for sustainable industries. The eligible bachelor who kept his private life intensely private. What had surprised her was how different he seemed in person. There was a restraint to him, a watchfulness that the photos never captured. And when he'd laughed at her blunt assessment, a genuine laugh that transformed his face, she'd glimpsed something she hadn't expected: loneliness. Amelia shook her head, returning her focus to the bottles before her. She was romanticizing a man she barely knew, attributing depth where there might be none. It was a professional engagement, nothing more. She would select exceptional wines, facilitate a memorable experience for his guests, and move on to the next client. Still, as she locked up the climate-controlled room, Amelia couldn't help but wonder what kind of event Gabriel Grayson was planning, and why he'd chosen her to be part of it. Gabriel's private elevator opened directly into his penthouse apartment, where his assistant, Derek, was waiting with a tablet in hand. "The sommelier confirmed for the 15th, Derek said, following as Gabriel strode toward his office. Though her assistant mentioned something about standard rates being sufficient, Gabriel set down his briefcase. "Keep the offer as is. I want her to know her expertise is valued." "Of course." "Also, Mr. Chen called about the Singapore proposal. He's pushing for a decision by Friday. Schedule a call for tomorrow morning. I'll have my answer by then." Derek nodded, making notes. "Anything else for today?" Gabriel hesitated. "Find out more about Amelia Prentiss, professional background, education, current projects." Derek's expression remained neutral, but Gabriel caught the slight raise of his eyebrow. "Anything specific you're looking for?" "Just due diligence for someone working an important event," Gabriel replied, his tone ending further discussion. After Derek left, Gabriel moved to the wall of windows that showcased the San Francisco skyline. The fog was rolling in, enveloping the taller buildings in a soft gray embrace. He loosened his tie, feeling a restlessness that had become familiar lately. His phone chimed with an email notification. The report on Amelia had arrived already. Derek's efficiency was legendary. Gabriel opened it, telling himself it was purely professional interest. Amelia's resume was impressive. Master's degree in viticulture and enology from UC Davis. Had worked harvests in France, Italy, and New Zealand before becoming a sommelier. Rose quickly through the certification levels. Started her own consulting business 3 years ago, specializing in private collections and exclusive events. No scandals, no social media presence beyond a professional page highlighting her services. What the report didn't capture was the passion in her voice when she'd spoken about that Barolo, or the directness of her gaze when she'd declined his dinner invitation. There was something refreshingly straightforward about Amelia Prentiss, a quality Gabriel rarely encountered in his world of careful negotiations and strategic relationships. He closed the email and turned back to the fog-shrouded view. The event on the 15th was a fabrication, an excuse to see her again. Gabriel wasn't entirely comfortable with the subterfuge, but he'd learned long ago that people changed around billionaires. They became what they thought he wanted, showed him what they thought he wanted to see. He wanted to know if Amelia Prentiss would be different. And if she was, then what? The days leading up to the 15th were filled with preparation for Amelia. She selected wines with meticulous care, researched the profiles of expected guests, mostly senior executives from Gabriel's company, and coordinated with the caterer Gabriel had hired. What she hadn't prepared for was the way her pulse quickened when she entered the private elevator to his penthouse, or the flutter of nerves as she watched the floor numbers climb. This was ridiculous. She'd served celebrities, politicians, even royalty without feeling flustered. Gabriel Grayson was just another wealthy client. The elevator opened directly into a foyer of warm wood and subtle lighting. A tall man with a tablet approached immediately. "Miss Prentiss, I'm Derek, Mr. Grayson's assistant. The wines you sent ahead have been stored according to your instructions. The catering team is already setting up in the kitchen." "Perfect. I'd like to check the serving temperatures and prepare the decanting for the reds that need it." Derek led her through the spacious penthouse. The design was minimalist but warm, with an emphasis on natural materials and clean lines. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased a panoramic view of the city and bay, now bathed in late afternoon sunlight. "This is breathtaking," Amelia murmured, pausing to take in the vista. "Mr. Grayson rarely has time to enjoy it," Derek remarked. "He's usually at the office until late." They continued to the kitchen, where Amelia began inspecting the wines and checking temperatures. She was deep in concentration when a familiar voice spoke from behind her. "I see you've already taken command of my kitchen." Amelia turned to find Gabriel watching her, his expression amused. He'd loosened his tie and rolled up the sleeves of his crisp white shirt, looking more relaxed than she'd seen him at Marcus's dinner. "Professional hazard," she replied. "Wine is temperamental, it needs proper handling. Much like people." He approached, examining the bottles she'd arranged. "These look exceptional. They should be, considering what you're paying for them and me." She met his gaze directly. "Which reminds me, there was no need to double my usual rate." Gabriel didn't look away. "Your expertise is worth it. Tonight is important." Something about his intensity made her curious. "What exactly are we celebrating? Your assistant mentioned a corporate milestone but was vague on details." A flicker of something hesitation crossed his face. "A successful quarter and some new partnerships. Nothing that would interest you." "You'd be surprised what interests me, Mr. Grayson." "Gabriel," he corrected again, the corner of his mouth lifting. "And I'm counting on being surprised by you, Amelia." Before she could respond to that cryptic comment, Derek reappeared. "Sir, the first guests will be arriving in 30 minutes. Gabriel nodded. "I'll let you finish your preparations. Looking forward to your selections tonight." As he left, Amelia returned to her work, but her mind kept circling back to their exchange. There was something different about Gabriel tonight, a guardedness that hadn't been there at Marcus's dinner. Almost as if he was the one maintaining professional distance now. Guests began arriving precisely at 7. Amelia noted that there were fewer than she'd expected, only 8 executives plus Gabriel. They gathered in the spacious living area, where Amelia had set up a display of the evening's first wines. As she began the initial tasting, explaining the characteristics of a crisp Sancerre she'd selected to accompany the appetizers, Amelia noticed something odd. The conversations among the executives seemed stiff, almost rehearsed. And Gabriel, rather than engaging fully with his guests, kept glancing her way. The pattern continued through the first course. While the food was exquisite and her wine pairings well received, there was an artificiality to the proceedings that nagged at her professional instincts. Something wasn't right. During a brief lull as the second course was being prepared, Amelia slipped into the kitchen for a moment of quiet. She was checking a Syrah's temperature when Gabriel appeared in the doorway. "Is everything all right?" he asked. "You seem concerned." Amelia considered deflecting, but her natural directness won out. "Actually, something feels off about tonight. Your guests seem uncomfortable, and you don't seem particularly invested in the celebration." She made air quotes around the last word. Gabriel held her gaze for a long moment, then sighed. "Walk with me for a minute, curious." Amelia followed him through a doorway and onto a terrace that wrapped around the corner of the building. The evening air was cool, the city lights twinkling below them. "I need to confess something," Gabriel said, leaning against the railing. "There is no corporate celebration." Amelia frowned. "I don't understand. The event tonight is constructed. Those are my employees, yes, but they're here because I asked them to be." He ran a hand through his hair, looking uncharacteristically uncertain. "I wanted to see you again, but I took your no-mixing business with pleasure comment to heart, so I created business." Amelia stared at him, processing this admission. "You orchestrated an entire fake corporate event just to see me again. When you put it that way, it sounds slightly unhinged." "It is slightly unhinged," she confirmed, but found herself fighting a smile. "You could have just called me directly. Would you have said yes to dinner?" Amelia considered this honestly. "Probably not." "There you go." He gestured as if her answer justified everything. "This is not normal behavior, Gabriel. Normal people don't spend thousands of dollars on elaborate ruses to see someone again. I never claimed to be normal. And it wasn't about the money." His expression grew serious. "After meeting you at Marcus's dinner, I couldn't stop thinking about you, about your passion for what you do, your directness. It's rare in my world." Amelia felt a warmth spreading through her chest that had nothing to do with the wine she'd sipped earlier. "So what now? You've got a house full of employees pretending to celebrate something while we're out here having this bizarre conversation." Gabriel's mouth quirked. "Now I apologize to my staff for the unnecessary evening work, compensate them generously, and ask you if you'd consider having dinner with me sometime. Just dinner. No pretense, no business angle." Amelia should have been annoyed. The deception, however well-intentioned, was manipulative. But there was something disarmingly honest about Gabriel now, standing in the moonlight with his defenses down, that appealed to her. "On one condition," she said finally. "Name it. We finish tonight properly. Your staff deserves a real experience after being roped into this scheme. And I selected some exceptional wines that shouldn't go to waste." Gabriel's smile was genuine. "Deal." They returned inside, where Gabriel made a brief announcement thanking everyone for indulging his team-building exercise and encouraging them to enjoy the remainder of the evening without work talk. The atmosphere noticeably lightened as people realized they weren't expected to perform anymore. As Amelia presented each wine throughout dinner, she found herself making eye contact with Gabriel more frequently. There was an understanding between them now, a shared secret that created an unexpected intimacy. By the time the last guests departed, shortly after 11, Amelia felt a curious mix of excitement and trepidation. Gabriel returned from seeing his employees out to find her organizing the remaining wines. "You were right," he said, loosening his tie further. "Everyone enjoyed themselves much more once the pretense was dropped. Wine has a way of bringing out authenticity," Amelia replied. "Speaking of which, there's one bottle we didn't open with the group." She lifted a dusty bottle from a wooden case. A 1982 Shadehow Lafite Rothschild. It seemed too special for a corporate event, real or fake. Gabriel's eyes widened slightly. "That's an extraordinary wine. I brought it because the tasting notes mentioned patient power and understated complexity. It reminded me of you." Amelia held his gaze, feeling suddenly bold. "Would you like to try it? I'd hate for it to travel back to storage without being appreciated." Gabriel smiled slowly. "I'd like that very much." He retrieved 2 proper Bordeaux glasses while Amelia carefully decanted the wine. They moved to the terrace, where Gabriel had activated subtle heating elements that kept the night chill at bay. Sitting in comfortable chairs with the cityscape before them, they sipped the exceptional vintage in companionable silence. "This was worth waiting for," Gabriel said finally, swirling the ruby liquid in his glass. Much like an honest conversation with you. Amelia smiled. I'm still not entirely sure what to make of tonight's charade, but I appreciate the effort in a strange way. Not many people go to such lengths. I'm not many people. Gabriel's voice was quiet but certain. When something or someone catches my interest, I pay attention. And I've caught your interest, Amelia asked, suddenly aware of how alone they were, how intimate the moment felt. From the first moment you started describing that Barolo. His eyes held hers. You spoke about wine the way I wish I could speak about the things that matter to me. And what matters to you, Gabriel? He looked out at the city for a long moment. Authenticity, purpose, connection. His gaze returned to her. Things that billions can't buy. The vulnerability in his admission touched something in Amelia. She'd assumed Gabriel Grayson would be like other wealthy clients, entitled, accustomed to deference. Instead, she found someone searching for genuine connection, just as she was. About that dinner invitation, she said softly. I think I'd like to accept. His smile transformed his face, erasing the careful reserve she'd noticed earlier. How about tomorrow night? Amelia laughed. Eager, aren't we? When I know what I want, I don't see the point in waiting. The intensity of his gaze made her breath catch. Tomorrow works for me. They finished their wine talking about simpler things, favorite books, travel experiences, childhood memories. By the time Amelia gathered her things to leave, it was well past midnight, and she felt as though she'd glimpsed the real Gabriel beneath the billionaire facade. At the elevator, he took her hand gently. Thank you for being understanding about tonight's unconventional approach. Thank you for being honest eventually, she smiled. Though I reserve the right to tease you about it relentlessly, I would expect nothing less. He hesitated, then leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted. Instead, Amelia met him halfway for a brief, gentle kiss that held the promise of more. As the elevator doors closed between them, Amelia felt a flutter of excitement she hadn't experienced in years. Whatever was beginning between them was unexpected and complicated, but like the finest vintage, it held the potential for something remarkable. Gabriel arranged to pick Amelia up the following evening, refusing to tell her where they were going for dinner. When his Aston Martin pulled up outside her modest Victorian in the Mission District, Amelia felt a momentary panic. What was she doing? Dating a billionaire? Their worlds couldn't be more different. But when Gabriel stepped out of the car, dressed in simple dark jeans and a cashmere sweater rather than his usual suit, some of her anxiety eased. He looked almost normal if one ignored the $100,000 watch and the car that cost more than her annual income. You look beautiful, he said as she approached, his eyes taking in her simple navy dress and the loose waves of her hair. You look casual, she replied with a smile. I was half expecting another suit. I save those for intimidating business rivals. He opened the passenger door. Tonight is about getting to know each other, not impressing each other, says the man driving a car worth more than most homes. Gabriel laughed as he slid into the driver's seat. Fair point. Would you prefer we take the bus? Maybe next time. Amelia settled into the butter-soft leather seat. So, where are we going that doesn't involve impressing me? You'll see. They drove north across the Golden Gate Bridge and into Marin County, the setting sun painting the sky in dramatic oranges and pinks. Amelia expected them to stop in Sausalito or Mill Valley, but Gabriel continued driving until they reached a remote stretch of coastline. He turned onto a narrow road that wound through cypress trees before ending at a small, weathered building perched on a cliff. What is this place? Amelia asked as he parked. The best seafood you'll ever taste, run by a family that has no idea who I am. I stumbled upon it years ago when I was hiking nearby. Gabriel came around to open her door. It's nothing fancy, but the food is incredible. Inside, the restaurant was simple but charming, with mismatched chairs and tables covered in blue checked cloths. An elderly woman greeted Gabriel by name, not Mr. Grayson, but Gabe, and led them to a corner table overlooking the ocean. "No one calls you Gabe," Amelia observed after they were seated. "Rosa does. She refuses to call me anything else, says Gabriel is too formal." His expression softened. "I come here when I need to remember what matters." "And what matters tonight?" Amelia asked, holding his gaze. "Getting to know the sommelier who called me out on being kept in the dark too long." Their conversation flowed easily over plates of fresh oysters and grilled fish caught that morning. Gabriel told her about growing up in a middle-class neighborhood in Chicago, the son of a high school teacher and a nurse. How he'd worked his way through college, then spotted an opportunity in sustainable investments when others were still focused on traditional markets. "What about you?" he asked as they shared a simple but perfect lemon tart. "How does one become an expert on fine wines?" Amelia smiled. "Not by growing up with them. My parents were academics, philosophy professors who viewed wine as a bourgeois distraction. I discovered it while waiting tables in college and fell in love with the complexity, the way each bottle captured a specific time and place." "What did the philosophy professors think of that?" "They were horrified at first. My mother called it selling out to sensory pleasures over intellectual pursuits." Amelia laughed at the memory. "They came around eventually, when they realized I approached wine with the same analytical rigor they brought to Kant and Hegel." As the restaurant began to empty, Rosa brought them glasses of house-made limoncello. "On the house for Gabe and his lady friend," she said with a wink at Amelia. After she walked away, Amelia raised an eyebrow. "Lady friend?" Gabriel looked slightly embarrassed. "This is the first time I've brought anyone here." The admission touched her. This wasn't a rehearsed date designed to impress. It was Gabriel sharing something personal, something real. Later, they walked along the moonlit beach below the restaurant, shoes in hand as the cool sand shifted beneath their feet. The conversation had turned to their respective worlds and the differences between them. "Doesn't it bother you?" Amelia asked. "Being seen as your bank account rather than a person." Gabriel was quiet for a moment, the sound of waves filling the silence. "It used to frustrate me more. Now I just accept that most people will never see past the billions." "That sounds lonely." "It can be." He looked at her. "Which is why moments like this, being Gabe instead of Gabriel Grayson, billionaire investor, are precious." Amelia stopped walking and turned to face him. "For what it's worth, I think I like Gabe better than Mr. Grayson." "I think I do too." His voice was soft as he drew her closer. "Especially when he's with you." This time their kiss was deeper, unhurried. Amelia felt herself responding to his touch, to the gentle strength in his hands as they cradled her face. When they finally broke apart, both slightly breathless, she saw vulnerability in his eyes that matched her own. On the drive back to the city, Gabriel reached across the console to take her hand. "I'm not very good at this," he admitted. "At what?" "Kissing." "Because evidence suggests otherwise," she teased. He laughed. "At letting someone see the real me, at not controlling every aspect of a situation." "Well, for a control-freak billionaire, you're doing surprisingly well." She squeezed his hand. "Just keep being Gabe with me, not Mr. Grayson, and we'll figure it out." As he pulled up outside her house, Gabriel didn't immediately get out to open her door as he had earlier. Instead, he turned in his seat to face her. "I have to fly to New York tomorrow for meetings, but I'll be back Thursday night. Would you have dinner with me again? Perhaps at your place. I could bring the wine for once." Amelia smiled at the reversal. You trust me with food the way I trust you with wine, implicitly. Then yes, Thursday, but nothing too expensive. I don't need you showing up with bottles worth more than my car. Noted. He leaned across to kiss her softly. Good night, Amelia. Good night, Gabe. As she watched his car disappear around the corner, Amelia felt a mixture of excitement and trepidation. She was falling for Gabriel Grayson, not the billionaire, but the man behind the fortune. The question was whether their different worlds would ultimately bring them together or drive them apart. The following weeks unfolded in a series of increasingly intimate evenings, as Gabriel and Amelia navigated the beginning of their relationship. After dinner at her place, where her simple pasta carbonara impressed him more than any Michelin-starred meal, they fell into a rhythm of seeing each other whenever Gabriel's demanding schedule allowed. He took her sailing on the bay in a small boat he'd owned for years, but rarely used. She introduced him to her favorite hole-in-the-wall restaurants where the owners greeted her like family. Together, they explored the city as if both were seeing it for the first time, Gabriel through Amelia's unpretentious eyes, and Amelia with access to places her budget had never allowed. They discovered shared tastes in books and music, a mutual love of historical documentaries, and a similar dry sense of humor. The differences in their daily lives, his board meetings and investor calls versus her wine tastings and inventory management, became subjects of fascination rather than division. 1 month into their relationship, however, the reality of Gabriel's public profile intruded on their private connection. They were leaving a small art gallery in North Beach, laughing over a particularly pretentious exhibition, when a camera flash caught them by surprise. "Mr. Grayson, who's the lady?" called a paparazzo who seemed to materialize from nowhere. "Are you two an item?" Gabriel instinctively stepped in front of Amelia, his body language shifting instantly from relaxed to guarded. "No comment," he said curtly, guiding her quickly to where his driver waited with the car. Once inside, Gabriel's jaw was tight. "I'm sorry about that. I should have been more careful." Amelia was still processing what had happened. "Does that occur often?" "More than I'd like. Usually I can avoid it by being boring and predictable in my movements." He ran a hand through his hair. "Being with you, I've been less cautious, going places I don't normally go." "Is this going to be a problem?" Amelia asked directly. "Me not fitting into your usual pattern?" Gabriel turned to her, his expression softening. "You're not the problem, Amelia. The invasion of privacy is the problem." He took her hand. "But I don't want it to change us. I don't want to start hiding in exclusive restaurants and private rooms." "Then we don't hide," she said simply. "If someone takes a picture, they take a picture. I have nothing to be ashamed of." Gabriel studied her face. "It might get uncomfortable. The business press can be intrusive, and the tabloids are worse. They'll dig into your background, make assumptions about why you're with me." "You mean they'll assume I'm a gold digger after your billions?" Amelia's mouth quirked. "Let them. We know the truth." Her nonchalance seemed to both surprise and relieve him. "Most women I've dated either loved the attention or hated it to the point of ending things. I'm not most women." She leaned in to kiss him softly. "And I'm not dating you for your money or your fame. I'm dating you because I like who you are when you forget to be Gabriel Grayson, billionaire." The incident with the photographer proved to be just the beginning. The following morning, Amelia's phone began ringing incessantly as her name appeared in business publications alongside Gabriel's. Grayson's new love interest, wine expert Amelia Prentiss, declared one headline. "Billionaire and Sommelier, vintage romance," quipped another. Her assistant, Lisa, called in a panic. "Amelia, the office line is going crazy. Everyone wants to know about you and Gabriel Grayson." "Tell them no comment," Amelia replied calmly. "And cancel anything non-essential this week. I'd rather lay low until this blows over." But it didn't blow over. Instead, the attention intensified as more photographs emerged Gabriel and Amelia at Rosa's restaurant, walking on the beach, leaving her house early one morning. The narrative quickly took shape. Billionaire investor finds love with wine expert. Gabriel called her from London, where he was attending a conference. "Are you okay? I've been watching the coverage from here." "I'm fine," Amelia assured him, though in truth she was unnerved by the sudden scrutiny. "Just annoyed that our private moments are being commodified for public consumption." "Welcome to my world," Gabriel said, his voice tired. "I can hire security for you if it gets too intrusive. Let's not overreact. It's just a few photographers and some phone calls." But by the time Gabriel returned 4 days later, the situation had escalated. Photographers had started camping outside Amelia's house and following her to appointments. Worse, clients were calling to cancel her services, uncomfortable with the publicity she now attracted. "This is ridiculous," Amelia fumed as she paced Gabriel's penthouse the night of his return. "A winery in Sonoma just canceled a contract because they don't want the distraction of having me there. As if I'm going to bring paparazzi to their harvest." Gabriel watched her with a troubled expression. "I was afraid of this. Your professional reputation is being affected by your association with me." "It's not your fault people are idiots," Amelia said, but her frustration was evident. "I've worked years to build my business, and now it's being undermined because I'm dating someone famous." "Maybe we need to be more strategic," Gabriel suggested carefully. "Keep a lower profile for a while. Use private entrances. Limit our public appearances together." Amelia stopped pacing. "You want us to hide? I want to protect what we have while also protecting your business." She considered this, torn between practicality and principle. "I don't like the idea of sneaking around as if we're doing something wrong." "Neither do I." Gabriel came to her, taking her hands in his. "But I like even less that your livelihood is being damaged because of me." Amelia sighed, leaning into his embrace. "Fine, we'll be more discreet, but I refuse to stop living our lives just because people can't mind their own business." They adapted as best they could over the following weeks. Gabriel arranged for private dining rooms at restaurants, used service elevators instead of main entrances, and had his security team check for photographers before they ventured out. Amelia rescheduled client meetings to less predictable times and locations, making it harder for anyone to track her movements. The strategy worked to reduce the most intrusive coverage, but it came at a cost. Their spontaneous outings ceased. The simple joy of walking hand in hand through the city became a calculated risk. Even visiting Rosa's restaurant required advance planning to ensure privacy. 6 weeks into this new normal, Amelia found herself sitting alone at her dining table, a glass of wine untouched before her. Gabriel had called to cancel their plans, a last-minute investor crisis requiring his immediate attention. It was the third cancellation in 2 weeks, each for legitimate business reasons, but the pattern was becoming familiar. Her phone rang, displaying Gabriel's name. "Hey," she answered, trying to keep the disappointment from her voice. "Crisis averted," he said, sounding exhausted but relieved. "Can I still see you tonight?" "Of course. I'll send the car. We can meet at the penthouse." Amelia hesitated. "Actually, can we meet somewhere else? I'm feeling a bit cooped up." There was a pause. "It would need to be somewhere private. The Times piece about us hit the internet today." Amelia had seen it, a surprisingly detailed profile of their relationship that speculated on everything from marriage possibilities to how Amelia might influence Gabriel's investment strategies. It was intrusive but relatively factual. What about the beach where we walked that night after Rosa's? She suggested. It's remote, dark, and meaningful to us. Gabriel's voice softened. I'd like that. I'll pick you up in an hour. The drive north was quiet, both lost in their thoughts as the city receded behind them. When they reached the beach, it was deserted, the only light coming from the moon reflecting off the gentle waves. They walked hand in hand along the shore, the cool sand between their toes. Finally, Amelia broke the silence. This isn't working, is it? Gabriel stopped walking. What isn't working? This hiding, this constant calculation of where we can go and who might see us. She turned to face him. I feel like we're losing something essential. His expression was troubled in the moonlight. I know it's not ideal. It's more than that. We're letting external forces dictate how we live our relationship, and it's changing us. Gabriel was quiet for a long moment, the sound of waves filling the silence. What are you saying, Amelia? I'm saying I don't want to live like this indefinitely. Always looking over our shoulders, always choosing the private room over the experience we actually want. She took a deep breath. But I also don't see how it changes unless one of us fundamentally changes our life. You mean gives up their career, Gabriel said quietly. Or accepts a very different version of it. Amelia looked out at the dark ocean. I built my business on personal connections, on being present with clients as they discover wines they love. I can't do that effectively from behind security guards and private entrances. Gabriel reached for her hand. What if I made some changes? Reduced my public profile, delegated more, created more space for us. The offer touched her deeply. You would do that, for you? Yes, his voice was certain. What we have is worth more than any business advantage my public visibility creates. Amelia stepped closer, resting her head against his chest. I don't want you to resent me later for asking you to change your life. You're not asking, I'm offering. He lifted her chin gently. I've spent years building wealth and influence, telling myself it was what mattered. Then I met a sommelier who saw through me in 5 minutes flat, and suddenly all the success felt hollow without someone to share it with. Tears pricked at Amelia's eyes. I love you, Gabriel Grayson. It was the first time either had said those words. Gabriel's intake of breath was audible before he replied. I love you too, more than I thought possible. Their kiss was deep and lingering, filled with the emotion of the moment. When they finally broke apart, both slightly breathless, Gabriel kept her close. I have an idea, he said. Not a perfect solution, but maybe a starting point. I'm listening. What if we spent more time away from San Francisco? I have a house in Napa that almost no one knows about. It's on 30 acres of land, completely private. We could base ourselves there, come into the city only when necessary. Amelia considered this. Wine country would actually be ideal for my work. Most of my clients are vineyards or collectors in that region anyway. We wouldn't have to hide there. We could just be. Gabriel's enthusiasm was growing. I can work remotely most days. My team is used to it already. It would mean some real changes for both of us, Amelia noted. Are you sure you're ready for that? Gabriel looked at her with complete certainty. I've never been more sure of anything. As they stood on that moonlit beach, the waves washing away their footprints, Amelia felt a sense of rightness settle over her. Their relationship had begun with Gabriel creating a fake event to see her again. Now they were creating something real together, a life that honored both their needs while protecting what mattered most. Their connection to each other. The Napa house turned out to be a revelation. Far from the opulent mansion Amelia had half expected. It was a thoughtfully designed modern farmhouse nestled among old oak trees, with a wall of windows overlooking a small vineyard. It felt like a home rather than a showpiece, warm, comfortable, and private in a way Gabriel's penthouse could never be. "This is beautiful," Amelia said as Gabriel gave her the tour. "Why don't you live here all the time?" Gabriel smiled, watching her reaction. "Business kept me in the city, and perhaps I thought I needed to maintain a certain image, the urban finance titan rather than the country gentleman." "Well, the country gentleman suits you." She moved to the terrace doors, taking in the view of rolling vineyards stretching to the distant mountains. "What's the story with the vineyard? Do you actually produce wine here?" "On a very small scale. The previous owner planted it, and I've maintained it more out of respect for the land than any winemaking ambitions." Gabriel stood beside her. "The grapes go to a local co-op. They've been quite good some years, I'm told." Amelia turned to him with sudden excitement. "Would you consider letting me do something with them? Not commercially, but as a private project." The joy in her expression made Gabriel laugh. "The vineyard is yours to direct, Sommelier. Though I should warn you, it's only 5 acres of Cabernet Sauvignon, nothing exotic. 5 acres is perfect for experimentation." Her mind was already racing with possibilities. With the right attention, even a small vineyard can produce something extraordinary. Gabriel watched her, his expression softening. "You know, when I bought this place, I had some vague notion of it being a retreat, somewhere to decompress from the pressures of business. I never imagined it becoming a home, but seeing you here already planning vineyard improvements." Amelia heard the unspoken question in his voice. "Are you asking me to move in with you, Mr. Grayson?" "I suppose I am, Miss Prentiss." His tone was light, but his eyes were serious. "Not immediately, if that feels too fast, but soon, when you're ready." Amelia considered the offer. They had been dating for just over 3 months, not a long time by conventional standards. Yet there was a depth to their connection that made the timeline seem irrelevant. Still, she valued her independence too much to rush. "Let's start with weekends," she suggested. "See how we do with shared space before we commit to full cohabitation." Gabriel nodded, looking relieved at her partial acceptance. "Reasonable and measured, as always." "One of us has to be," she teased, reaching up to kiss him softly. The weekend arrangement quickly evolved as Amelia found herself spending more time in Napa than San Francisco. Her client base in wine country expanded, and the freedom to move about without photographers tracking her movements was liberating. Gabriel, true to his word, arranged his schedule to spend 3 or 4 days a week at the house, working remotely except when meetings demanded his physical presence in the city. By the time autumn arrived, painting the vineyards in gold and crimson, they had settled into a rhythm that felt both comfortable and exciting. Amelia had taken charge of the small vineyard, consulting with local experts and implementing changes that Gabriel only partially understood but fully supported. Her joy in the project was contagious, and he often found himself helping with tasks he would never have imagined doing, testing soil samples, monitoring irrigation systems, even assisting with pruning under her careful instruction. One evening in late October, as they sat on the terrace watching the sunset with glasses of wine, Gabriel broached a subject they had been circling for weeks. "Your lease in the city is up next month, isn't it?" Amelia nodded, taking a sip of her wine. "November 15th. "And most of your clothes and books are already here," he observed casually. "Are you saying I've been slowly moving in without officially moving in?" She raised an eyebrow. "I would never accuse you of such subterfuge." His eyes crinkled with amusement. "I'm simply noting that maintaining 2 residences seems inefficient when you spend 90% of your time here already." Amelia set down her glass, turning to face him fully. "Are you making a practical argument for cohabitation based on economic efficiency, Gabriel?" I'm making every argument I can think of, he admitted with a smile. Including the fact that I sleep better when you're here. I love waking up to you in the morning, and this house feels empty when you're gone. The simple honesty of his words touched her. Gabriel had grown more open with his feelings over the months they'd been together, but such direct expressions of need were still rare from him. Well, when you put it that way. Amelia moved to sit on his lap, looping her arms around his neck. I suppose maintaining two residences is rather impractical. Gabriel's arms encircled her waist. Is that a yes? That's a yes. I'll give notice tomorrow. His kiss was tender and unhurried, filled with the certainty of their shared future. When they broke apart, Gabriel reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. I was going to wait until after harvest, he said, looking suddenly nervous. But this moment feels right. Amelia's breath caught as he opened the box to reveal a ring, not the ostentatious diamond she might have expected from a billionaire, but an elegant vintage piece featuring a deep blue sapphire, surrounded by small diamonds in a platinum setting. This belonged to my grandmother, Gabriel said softly. My mother gave it to me years ago, saying it should go to the woman who made me happier than I thought possible. He took a deep breath. Amelia Prentiss, will you marry me? Tears filled Amelia's eyes as she looked from the ring to Gabriel's face, open and vulnerable in a way few people ever saw. Yes, she whispered. Yes, I will marry you. The ring fit perfectly as he slid it onto her finger. I had it sized based on a ring you left in the bathroom, he admitted. I hope that's not too presumptuous. Amelia laughed through her tears. Always the strategist. Only when it matters most. He kissed her again, his hands cradling her face with gentle reverence. Later that night, as they lay in bed discussing how to share their news, Gabriel surprised her again. What would you think about getting married here? Not a huge event, just family and close friends. Amelia propped herself up on one elbow to look at him. Not the society wedding of the year. No business associates to impress. The financial press would be devastated. Gabriel chuckled. Let them be disappointed. I want our wedding to be about us, not about Gabriel Grayson, CEO, making a strategic alliance. I like the sound of that. Amelia traced the line of his jaw with her finger. A small ceremony among the vines, perhaps next spring when everything's in bloom. Perfect. Gabriel caught her hand and kissed her palm. And in the meantime, we can focus on the vineyard, making this house truly ours and figuring out what comes next. What comes next? Amelia echoed, curious. Gabriel's expression grew thoughtful. I've been considering stepping back from the day-to-day operations at Grayson Investments. Not retiring completely, but transitioning to chairman rather than CEO. It would give us more flexibility, more time together. The magnitude of what he was suggesting wasn't lost on Amelia. That's a big change, Gabriel. Are you sure? I've been building toward this for years, setting up the right team. The company doesn't need me micromanaging anymore. His eyes held hers. And I've discovered there are things more worthy of my time and attention. The certainty in his voice told Amelia this wasn't an impulsive decision, but something he had been considering carefully. If that's what you want, I support you completely, but don't do it just for me. Not just for you, Gabriel assured her, for us, for the life we're building together. He pulled her closer. I spent years accumulating wealth and power because I thought they were the measure of success. Then I met a sommelier who valued authenticity over status, who saw the man behind the billions and called him out for being kept in the dark too long. Amelia smiled at the memory of their first meeting. You needed to breathe. I needed you, Gabriel corrected softly. I just didn't know it until that night. As they drifted toward sleep in each other's arms, Amelia reflected on the unexpected journey that had brought them here. From a wine dinner where she'd spoken honestly to a guarded billionaire, to planning a life together in a Napa Valley vineyard. It wasn't the path she'd imagined for herself, but it felt right in a way nothing else ever had. Their wedding the following May was everything they had hoped for: intimate, meaningful, and completely their own. 70 guests gathered among the flowering vines as Amelia and Gabriel exchanged vows they had written themselves. She promised to always see the man behind the achievements. He vowed to cherish her honesty and passion above all else. Marcus Ellison, who had unknowingly set their story in motion by hiring Amelia for that fateful wine dinner, served as Gabriel's best man. "I knew something was happening that night when Gabe kept staring at you instead of networking," he teased during his toast. In 15 years of friendship, I'd never seen him distracted from business by anything or anyone. The reception featured wines from their own vineyard, the first vintage Amelia had overseen from pruning to bottling. It wasn't commercially available and never would be. Like their relationship, it was something precious they had created together, to be shared only with those who truly mattered in their lives. As evening fell and lights twinkled among the vines, Gabriel led Amelia away from the celebration to a quiet corner of the property. "I have a wedding gift for you," he said, guiding her toward a building she hadn't noticed before, partially hidden by oak trees. "What is this?" Amelia asked as he opened the door to reveal a small but state-of-the-art winemaking facility. "Your domain," Gabriel said, watching her expression with delight. "Everything you need to expand beyond our little vineyard. I've arranged to purchase 20 adjacent acres that are perfect for planting different varietals." Amelia turned to him in shock. "Gabriel, this is enormous. A commercial winery. Not commercial necessarily, unless you want it to be. It could be a private label, a limited production for select clients, or just for our enjoyment. The choice is yours." He took her hands. "You gave up aspects of your career because of me. This is my way of giving you new possibilities." Tears filled Amelia's eyes as the magnitude of his gift sank in. Not just the facility itself, but the thought behind it, his understanding of what wine meant to her, his desire to support her passion rather than diminish it. "Thank you," she whispered, embracing him tightly. "Not just for this, but for everything, for seeing me as clearly as I see you." Gabriel held her close, the sounds of their wedding celebration drifting on the evening breeze. "We make a good vintage, you and I," he murmured against her hair. "Complex, balanced, and improving with time." Amelia laughed softly. "Now who's the poetic one? I learned from the best." He kissed her tenderly. "Ready to rejoin our guests, Mrs. Grayson, in a minute." Amelia looked around at the gleaming equipment, the oak barrels waiting to be filled, the space created just for her. Then back at Gabriel, whose love had transformed her life in ways she never could have imagined. "I just want to savor this moment a little longer." Hand in hand, they stood in the doorway of their shared future, the path ahead clear and bright with promise. Like the finest wine, their story had begun with an unexpected meeting, developed complexity through challenges overcome, and matured into something rare and precious. A vintage worth waiting for, a love worth keeping. 5 years later, Gabriel stood at the edge of the expanded vineyard, watching as Amelia directed the final stages of harvest. Their winery, Prentiss Grayson Vintners, had become renowned in select circles for its limited production wines, each bottle numbered and personally approved by Amelia. They weren't sold commercially, but were featured in the world's finest restaurants and private collections. Beside Gabriel, their 3-year-old daughter, Sophia, pointed excitedly. "Mama's checking the grapes." "That's right, sweetheart. Mom's making sure they're perfect." Gabriel lifted Sophia onto his shoulders for a better view. Amelia looked up and waved, her face flushed with exertion and satisfaction. The autumn sunlight caught the strands of silver beginning to appear in her dark hair, and Gabriel felt the familiar rush of love that had only deepened over the years. Later that evening, after Sophia was asleep and the harvest crew had departed, Gabriel and Amelia sat on their terrace with glasses of their first vintage, now aged to perfection. "Remember that wine dinner at Marcus's where we met?" Amelia asked, leaning against him. "How different things were then." Gabriel nodded, his arm around her shoulders. "I was so closed off, all ambition and no real joy. And I was so determined to keep my professional distance." She smiled up at him. "Good thing you created that fake corporate event. Best deception of my life." Gabriel kissed the top of her head. "Though I still maintain it wasn't completely fake. Those employees did get a lovely dinner out of it." Amelia laughed. "Always justifying your schemes." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars appear above the vineyard they had nurtured together. Their life wasn't perfect. They still navigated the occasional intrusion of Gabriel's public profile, and balancing Amelia's winemaking with parenthood presented challenges. But it was deeply fulfilling in ways neither had experienced before. Gabriel thought about how far they had come since that first meeting. He had indeed stepped back from day-to-day operations at Grayson Investments, serving now as chairman while focusing more on philanthropic initiatives, and increasingly on supporting sustainable agriculture in wine country. Amelia had transformed from sommelier to respected vintner, her expertise sought by collectors and vintners alike. But their greatest creation wasn't the award-winning wines or the business successes. It was the life they had built together, a partnership based on honesty, mutual respect, and the courage to value authenticity over expectation. "What are you thinking about?" Amelia asked, noticing his contemplative expression. Gabriel smiled, raising his glass to hers. "I'm thinking that some vintages truly do get better with time." As their glasses clinked in the moonlight, both knew it was true of their wine and even more so of their love.